All right, so this is Todd Atkins, and I'm here with Jacob Candela, and we're going to talk about his tryimpact.io project, which is kind of like a training, feedback, coaching platform. But I'm going to let him talk about it more because he can do it justice, obviously. But before we start, check out my sponsor, which is Live to Fight Design. If you use my promo code, which you see up there, which is Todd Atkins, you can get $20 off your order. And they make fight banners and gym banners. So if you're into that, if you need a banner for your sponsors, check them out at Instagram, Live to Fight Design. Now, Jacob, kind of as we're getting started here, I want to know, kind of let you introduce yourself to combat sports audience, and then maybe talk about how you kind of got into this, when it was.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for having me today, Todd. I really appreciate it. I've been in combat sports for about 10 years now. Right around 2013 is when I really started getting involved in it, going to my first martial arts school and class. So a little bit later in my life, just no one really in my immediate family was practicing martial arts. So it took me a little bit to really fall in love with it. But ever since, I've been really hoping and trying to help the community in any way I can. It's a community that has given back to me in so many different ways. I'm just constantly trying to think of ways that I can really give back to it and help everyone in the community. And so I actually have a background in technology. I was doing technology sales in San Francisco for about 5 years now. And so I was really looking to kind of leverage my background in technology and really help the community at scale. And so that's kind of where the idea came from. I've seen this in golf a lot, where you can upload your video and get fantastic instruction from these coaches all around the world who are, you just wouldn't have access to them otherwise. And so I thought it was really a perfect fit for the martial arts community, because I know, and I'm sure, Todd, you've dealt with this. A lot of times the gyms are just so busy because you have to have a lot of students for rent and things like that, that you might not get the amount of looks that you'd like, or you might have a big fight coming up and really need some extra attention. And so I thought it would be a perfect way for the students to kind of get feedback from their favorite fighters or their favorite coaches that have done it at a super high level, and allow them to do it from anywhere in the world. So that's kind of where the idea came from. And that's how we're trying to help the students and the coaches as well.
So when you were kind of building this, how long did it take you to kind of put it together and then get a handful of people on board for it?
Yeah, well, we're about 5 months in right now from the platform being built and the coaches, where it's at right now. So it was really started as a proof of concept. We're really trying to see, hey, are students really getting a lot of value out of this? Are the coaches happy with the platform? And so it really started as a proof of concept. My first coach was Lance Dixon, who is fantastic Muay Thai professional and a professional fighter currently. So, he is, a champion in the United States. He's the tournament to Bangkok middleweight champion, I believe. His pedigree is just fantastic. And so I reached out to him because he was located in the same area as me in California, just to see if he would be willing to help me out with the project. And he came on board and we tested it out with a few students, and the feedback was just fantastic. So that's kind of how it got rolling. And then just reaching out to other coaches to see if they would want to join.
Now, what was their kind of I you kind of talked about Lance, but some of the other guys, when you're kind of pitching this platform, what was kind of their reaction?
Yeah, well, I was pretty surprised that a lot of them had actually done Zoom classes or Zoom tutorials beforehand. So this was a really cool approach. The feedback I got from the coaches was that it was a really cool approach for them to give personalized feedback to the students, where it's the students' film, it's the students' first jujitsu tournament, or them hitting the heavy bag, and really getting some insight and providing value to that student specifically. So the feedback was great from the coaches. And, Todd, as you know, these in martial arts, in the community in general, you'll have world class athletes, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu black belts, who and any extra cash flow would be really helpful as well. So it's a great approach for them as well to really help with their craft because the best way to learn is to teach as well, to really build a fan base, and then also kind of have that extra cash flow when they're not fighting or when they're in their downtime. They can have 4 or 5 lessons to complete right after dinner. So it's a great system for them, and the feedback's been positive.
So they get like some compensation based on how many or how much volume they're getting as far as requests, or how does
Oh, for
that work,
sure.
so to
Yeah.
speak?
Yeah, that's the main goal. Like right now, we're just trying to help the community as much as we can. So that's the athletes, the coaches, and the students. So that's the main concern. They're getting a majority, if not all, of the compensation right now.
Hmm. So how many coaches realistically would you want involved in this project?
Yeah, right now we have 4 total. So we're trying to prove the concept, make sure we fit the demand for those coaches, make sure they're taken care of first, and then kind of build from there. So I don't really have a set number in mind in terms of a cap on it. I don't think there's there's a few companies who have done this in different sports, and you can get up to 500, 600, 700 coaches on the platform if it's done properly. So that would be the eventual goal.
Hmm.
But the first step is to really make sure the demand is there for the coaches, because I wouldn't want to bring on a coach, have them get excited about it, and then the demand not be there. So that's the main concern right now.
So as you're building this, what's been your feel now having the 4 guys?
Mm.
How much how much volume do you think is coming in so far?
Yeah, I'm super excited about it. So the first of all, I was really, to be honest with you, Todd, I was a little bit nervous about what the feedback would be from the students specifically, because we put a lot of effort and time into it. But at the end of the day, that they have to feel like the value's there. So the feedback has actually been fantastic from the students. We have a couple asking, hey, can you look at this YouTube video next and things like that. And so the feedback has been great from it, which I'm super excited about. And the demand is building. We really just launched with Natan, who is the UFC in the UFC lightweight division. We just launched with him last week. Shimon, we have a new coach coming on board next week. Shimon, who's fantastic. Juan Adams, who was in the UFC. He was in PFL. He was a semifinalist in 2022. He just launched last week. So the demand is ramping up, and I'm super excited about it because these guys are fantastic. And I'm just really excited for coaches or I mean, students to have access to these guys now.
Let's kind of talk about the background of a Tri Impact. So kind of tell me, I know you started kind of in combat sports 10 years ago. Where was that? What were you doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got into it since there was no one really in my family who was really competing in combat sports or practicing it. I actually got into it just by watching the UFC. That 2013, 2014, you're watching the tail end of GSP. John Jones against Gustafson is right in there. And then you have Conor McGregor crashing on the scene. All that's happening. And so that's kind of what really pushed me to get started in it. And to be honest with you, Todd, I really was looking for, a confidence boost too. I was talking about how much the community has given back to me. Just the confidence alone you get from really practicing martial arts was a huge plus and a huge driver for me. And so I was actually practicing in Florida. I got into an MMA gym. And then immediately after that, I moved to California and really focused on Muay Thai specifically. So I was in Muay Thai for a while, and then I've been blessed. I've actually been able to travel a bit. So I was living on Maui for about 5 to 6 months
Mhm.
and was just strictly jujitsu there.
Mhm.
And then now I'm back in California and I'm back at an MMA gym. So really focusing on Muay Thai, boxing, trying to get into a little bit of wrestling too, MMA focused wrestling as well. So, I've done Krav Maga in Pennsylvania. I really love the art forms. I really love just learning more about them, because they all have something really special to offer. So that's kind of the background.
I lived on Oahu for 14 years. So what made you go to Maui?
I was listening to an episode 2 weeks ago. I didn't even know that. Were you boxing on Oahu?
Well, first I was on a couple of submarines at Pearl Harbor.
Okay.
And then I got out. I went to college there, and yeah, I trained boxing, jujitsu, wrestling, yeah, all kinds of
Gotcha.
stuff there. Mhm.
I just moved out there during COVID. I was working remote actually, and I got connected through a mutual friend, and it was just an easy transition. And actually, the timing worked out really well. And when I got to Maui, he was actually doing surf lessons during in the morning, and then he was practicing jujitsu in the afternoon at Aloha Roll Academy out in Maui. So I had the Muay Thai background, and I wanted to get into jujitsu. It's a little intimidating first sometimes, and so it was perfect having him already at the gym. He was a blue belt, I think, just got his blue belt, so really easy transition. He helped me out the first couple of days. And then jujitsu, I was addicted to. I was just doing that for about 5 to 6 months, which was fun.
Now you're training. Now, when does this idea come? Maybe this is something I want to do. This platform. How far
Yeah,
into it? How far into that 10 years? When was it?
yeah, it was. So I've actually been really trying to help the community with technology specifically for realistically probably 3 years now. Just actually building out prototypes, really building out products. So I had a few ideas that I worked through and just didn't think they were feasible, one with my resources, and then also I didn't know what the traction would be like with the community. One example was I built out a platform. I felt that in a jujitsu and martial arts community, a lot of times it's difficult if you miss a few classes or a few weeks. The classes have kind of moved on because they have to, and you kind of lose track.
Mhm.
So I was working on a platform that would almost be like a project management tool for yourself on your martial arts journey. So it's your jujitsu, you can kind of keep up, see exactly where your last class was, what you learned, and what the class has been doing since you left. So things like that, I've been really trying to do that for about 3 years. And then this idea came about because I grew up in the golfing community, and I had been pointed in the direction of an app to work on your golf swing. And I immediately thought it was an amazing opportunity to kind of help the community in martial arts as well and kind of leverage that same idea. So not really reinventing the wheel in that day, just kind of bringing it to a new sport. But that was about a year ago. And then really trying to work through designs, getting the idea into the hands of a few people who I really trust their judgment. I reached out to about 100 gyms to see kind of what their main issues were. Because at the end of the day, it's really designed to help, gyms, coaches, athletes, and students. So I was reaching out to gyms to see kind of what their main issues were, and then reaching out to a bunch of coaches before I even asked them to become a coach. I was just looking for feedback as well. So that was probably a year. And then 5 months ago, I really started to kind of hit the ground running with it.
Now, how much of an undertaking is this to build something like? Because most of us, I don't know stuff about tech. I mean, how much of an undertaking is it to build a platform like this?
Yeah, it just depends what you're trying to do. So the short answer is it's a lot. Right now, we're just trying to prove out the concepts of the resources. We haven't had to put a lot of resources into it. But Todd, what I really see this as is so much more than just, a tool that you upload your video and your favorite fighter can analyze it. There's so much you can do with it that's going to need a lot more resources. So right now at that the basic idea, there isn't a ton that we need at the moment, but where we want to go, there's going to be a lot of resources. Maybe need to raise some capital and get some engineers on board to help out. So there's definitely a lot where we want to go.
Is there anything you want to give up as far as where you're thinking about going with it?
Yeah, no, I'm fine with talking
Okay.
about it. Yeah, absolutely. So right now the video analysis is where we are starting, but a lot of these fighters, I've never had an amateur fight, but when I'm talking with the coaches, what they're getting a lot is fighters just from a mental standpoint, just saying like, "Hey, I'm going to my first amateur fight. Like, what do I expect here? How should I prepare mentally?" what do I eat the morning before? These are
Hmm.
all questions that are really tough to answer, especially when, you're at a gym where there might be two coaches and they might have 500 other students to look after. So it's really difficult to ask them. And so we're trying to do a mentorship program as well. That's going to be built out. We're trying to build out a system where you can have a 45-minute or an hour long one-on-one conversation with the coach or your favorite fighter to really get his thoughts. So there's a lot we're going in that direction to kind of build out a full suite of tools. Maybe you're 3 months out from your first Muay Thai amateur fight. You can work with a coach to build out that your entire fight camp. So we're kind of going in that direction and really trying to do that. But the first stage is definitely let's prove the concept with the video analysis.
Now, when you go to a fight or something, what are you telling them when you try to get them on board to do something like this?
Yeah, my first step is really just ask for feedback because that's the most important thing. A lot of times the feedback will tell me if they're interested or not. The pleasant surprise I've had is that these fighters and coaches have picked up on the idea and what we're trying to do really quickly. What I just described to you, kind of our vision, a lot of these coaches had started talking to me about that vision before I even said anything about it. So they're getting the long term vision of the platform right away, which was a super pleasant surprise for me. And I think that leads back to a lot of the messages they get on Instagram. A lot of their DMs are asking these specific questions, asking for help. And so I think that's where and why they picked up the vision so quickly. Also, they're just fantastic individuals in general. But I think that's a big part of it as well. So I was super excited about that.
Now, some people do some online type of, I mean, I know some of the Gracies do that kind of stuff. I haven't watched much of it or any of it really. Most stuff I watched was on YouTube or some old school VHS stuff back when that was coming out. But do you know how it might differentiate from something like that, what you're doing?
Are you referring to like BJJ Fanatics or they have Athlete Ocean now?
Well,
And like where
BJJ
the
Fanatics is more like instructionals, but I know
yeah.
like Henner and his brother were actually doing like actual teaching, to certain degrees. How would this differ from something like that?
Yeah. So from my understanding, there's a few that might do personalized feedback from your video where you can upload it. We're just trying to create the go-to platform for it, basically. So
Hmm.
what they have out there a lot now is instructional videos. How to set up an arm triangle in
Hmm.
jujitsu. And it's really difficult because you're not getting actual feedback from your own videotape. You're not getting actual guidance. And so that's one way we're really differentiating ourselves is really creating a personalized feedback. But at the end of the day, what it comes down to is who has the best experience for the students. I think that's what's going to win the space. And so that's all I'm focused on right now. How can we create an amazing experience for these students? So right now, if they uploaded a video of, let's say, them shadow boxing or hitting a heavy bag, you're going to get 10 to 15 minutes, or I think the minimum right now is 8 minutes of personalized feedback on your technique with the fighter in the screen, walking through your entire video. Then you're
Mm,
going to get
wow.
you're going to get 2 to 3 drills after that to work on based on your video feedback from the coach. So he's going to give you 2 to 3 drills and you're going to get a fighter to watch at the end of the day. So it's really cool. The fighter to watch is based on your style, your technique too. So next time you turn on the TV, you can really, you can watch okay, in my first amateur MMA fight, I wasn't great at distance control. And so now they have you watching John Jones in his upcoming fight. And, how does he manage his distance? Because he might be the best at it ever. So just little stuff like that that is really trying to kind of build out the experience, which I'm super excited about and super focused on.
Now, the coaches, do they just go on it whenever they want? Is it up to them to decide what time in their day they want to do this? How does that work?
Yeah, well, it's a little bit tricky in that sense because, as you know, the fight game is unpredictable. So, for example, To answer your question, we have a range. It's typically the minimum wait time is 3 days for a lesson. If a coach is available and wants to, complete your lesson, they're more than welcome to complete it right away. So it could be quicker, but the minimum is usually typically 3 days. And then we have about a max of right now it's 21 to 24 days. It's just difficult to tell because, for example, Natan was supposed to fight in UFC Vegas a month ago. He cut weight. That got moved to UFC Charlotte for the Rosenstrike card. And then his opponent missed his weight uh, that Friday afternoon. So there's a lot of stuff that we
Mhm.
can't really predict. And so that's what we're trying to make sure the students know. And as long as we're communicating properly, I think that should be fine. But to answer your question, it's really up to them to complete the lessons anytime in their day. If they want to do before dinner, after dinner, when they wake up in the morning, it's really up to them. And then just the time frame we have to set because we want to make sure they get their lesson as soon as possible.
Now, how many students do you have currently using this? Do you know?
Off the top of my head, no, it's not over 100. So we're still, again, we just launched last week with a lot of the coaches. So we're still kind of ramping up the demand, but it's exciting though.
Now, where did you target people at first? When you're first starting this out, where did you look to get like your first students that were going to use this?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I've been doing a lot of times is just reaching out to students directly on Instagram, reaching out to students who post videos on YouTube. There's a lot of students who post their heavy bag to get feedback on YouTube as well.
Mhm.
So reaching out to students on Twitter too who upload their videos. So just reaching out to people who I kind of know are in the martial arts community, looking for some feedback and might be interested. So it's been a lot of actual direct outreach as most of these things are in the beginning.
Now, this platform at the moment, is it free? What does it cost? Or is there cost?
Yeah, it depends on the coach. So right now, most of the coaches are $100 a lesson, and then I believe Natan's is at 125 right now.
And what does a lesson consist of? Is it one video or is it several?
Yeah, it's one recorded video. So minimum 8 minutes, maximum. I think the max we've done right now is 16. And then you get the 2 to 3 drills. A lot of times there's video recordings of the drills as well, of kind of what we're looking to accomplish there. So 2 to 3 drills and then the fighter to watch. So that's kind of the total package.
Mhm. So it's kind of like Cameo in theory, where they give a message, so to speak, and each guy has kind of like their price. Are they the ones setting the price, or is that something you're involved with? How does it work?
Yeah, it's Cameo is a terrific example. That's kind of the idea, just more in depth with the analysis of the video. But that's definitely the basic concept. And the coaches we work together on the price. So if they're not happy with the price, that's definitely not a good thing. I want them to be happy. I want them to be, the goal is to help them along with the students, but they have to be happy. I want them to really enjoy the platform. When they sit down to complete a lesson, it's really important to me that they feel that their time's valued and that they're, really making a difference. So definitely something we work with them together.
Now, your pool of students, do they can utilize all the coaches, or do they pick certain ones, or
Yeah,
how
so
does
you got
that
to
work?
you pick your coach. So whatever
Okay.
one would work best for you. So, we have Lance is really focused on Muay Thai, but we have a lot of MMA fighters. Natan's got a really great karate background, kung fu background too. Juan is wrestling, heavyweight at MMA. Shimon is his pedigree is insane. He's got I think he's a Greco-Roman national champion. Um, Kickboxing national champion twice. I think in 2017 he was the top athlete in the junior athlete in the country. Like it's really great because they specialize in a lot of different things. And as you know, Todd, I'm sure like back in 10 to 15 years ago, a lot of it was singular focused, where they were great at one thing. Now people are 22 years old and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts for 5 years already. So it's really cool that a lot of the coaches have so many different skills because it helps the students and gives them a wide range of kind of who they can choose from.
So the student doesn't say, I'll do a video here and then here and this guy and this guy. It doesn't work that way, right?
No, it doesn't. I mean, they can, but they would just have to pay for each coach.
Oh, okay. So that's interesting. So it's kind of like, is there a length of time, or is there, like, when they sign up, are they signing up for a length of time, or it's just as they use it?
No, right now it's just as they use it. So it's one-off purchases. It's definitely the subscription model. I have a vision for that as well, that I'm super excited about. And I think there is an aspect of a subscription model that makes a ton of sense for it. Right now, though, just to prove out the concept, again, we're a little young in that sense, just trying to prove out the concept mainly. Um, we're just doing one-off purchases for now.
Now, you want to be more web-based, or are you going to do like an app for it?
I've talked it's a great question because I've talked to a few people in the golf space who have done this already and they're doing really well. And a lot of their advice to me was saying the app looks fantastic, it's great, and the app does work. But what they said was they kind of wish it was almost web-based. It's a little bit easier for people to engage with it. It's a little bit easier for people all around the world to have access to it. Because that's the martial arts community is so global. The last thing I want to happen is they don't have access to it because it's a certain app or that they can't download. So I think the web-based version is definitely where we want to go, and that's where it's at right now. So I think the idea is to really help build it out on the web-based platform.
Now, I get what you're talking about, obviously, but maybe for a person who has just watched instructionals,
Mm.
what might be some of the advantages to this versus an instructional? I know we kind of touched on this where they're just showing the move, you aren't getting the feedback. Maybe
Yeah,
talk a little bit more about that.
yeah, absolutely. So I, especially going into jujitsu, I would watch instructionals a ton. There's so many great resources out there. There's YouTube, there's Athlete Oceans, there's a ton of great. I mean, the best jujitsu practitioners in the world have instructions on there on, 3 ways to attack from the guard, like stuff that 10, 15 years ago was impossible to get access to. So there's definitely a lot of foundational resources out there for students already. What we're really trying to solve is just be an addition, really help if you want to level up your game, if you're trying to figure out, hey, maybe my performance isn't as great as it needs to be. I don't know where to go. The coaches in my gym are fantastic, but they've got 30 people on the mat on a Tuesday night. It's really difficult to get feedback from them. So we're just really trying to be a super helpful addition to kind of your training program right now. Or sometimes people don't have access to gyms. They don't have access to coaches in their area as well. So that's another thing. Sometimes you just want to get some feedback on a heavy bag and don't have access to a coach. So there's a couple aspects of it that I think would be really helpful. And like you had mentioned, Todd, if you're not in this space a ton, or maybe if you've been a black belt for 10 years, it's really difficult to remember what it was like, that barrier to entry and kind of feeling lost on the mat. And it's a really tough time. And that's why a lot of people don't make it to blue belt and things like that. So we're really just trying to kind of help the students as much as we can, and just be an addition to that kind of foundational resources that they have.
So it's almost like an enhanced private sort of, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So the private lessons, this was when I started out, it was clear to me that you can never replace in person. Like jujitsu, especially a lot of striking aspects, it's impossible to replace that in person, someone watching your technique, giving you immediate feedback. So we're definitely not trying to replace the the in-person lessons. The nice part is though, it gives access to people who they might not be at a gym, or they might travel a lot and don't have access to an in-person lesson, or they want feedback from their favorite fighter, things like that. So definitely no replacement for an in-person. But it's a little bit more of like an enhanced in-person, who either someone wants the extra time looked at them, or they don't have access to it.
Now, how many coaches do you want to take on over a certain period of time? Is there like a goal or an idea of that, or is it just kind of as you go?
Yeah, my vision right now is to make sure the demand's there for the four coaches I have. Once the demand's there, I'm going to probably do it in batches because I think that would be easiest in terms of onboarding and making sure that the coaches are a good fit, and making sure that they understand kind of what the responsibilities are. So I'd imagine it being in batches from there, especially with the team. We don't have a ton of resources in terms of bandwidth for our time right now. So I think batches of probably 25 coaches after that would make the most sense. But yeah, it's probably going to adapt as we go though.
Yeah, and I think, a lot of coaches, fighters, they don't have other sources of income to use the knowledge they have, outside of either fighting or teaching at a gym most of the time. They may do some privates here or there, but this is almost like another way to do that.
Exactly. And they can, that's where I thought it was really extremely helpful for the coaches as well. A lot of times it's such a fluctuation with your cash flow in this industry, and they can fly you out to, Houston to do a session, and you get a couple of grand from it, but it's still not the cash flow that you really need. And you want to spend time with your family when you're outside of camp. You want to live your life and have a good time. And so that's kind of what it also helps with the coaches, that lifestyle, as with the cash flow as well. So that's exactly what we were trying to accomplish with the coaches, Todd.
Now let's talk a little bit about. I know your research, like you said, you reached out to Instagram, some people on Twitter. Where did you? I think TikTok is there where I see a lot of people saying, "Hey, rate my bad work, my bad work." People will rip them and stuff. But I see a lot of it there actually. Guys who
That's
are
a
just in their garage, check me out on the bag kind of thing.
That's a great call. I was looking into TikTok basically for the last 3 weeks doing research on it. I had a mini attempt at TikTok about a month and a half ago. Wasn't as good as it at it in terms of posting as I thought. So I'm probably gonna have to bring someone on to help me out with that. But the outreach is a tremendous idea on TikTok, and that's definitely an approach we're working on.
So what was the app that you used where you felt like it was kind of like this has been the most effective one for me, or this has been the one where I found the most people?
Right now it's been Instagram. So I've been really looking to see who's following, who's really involved in the MMA community. And my initial thought, Todd, was that it would be, the really casual fan that would kind of gravitate towards this, where they're not a part of a gym. They love watching the UFC. They got a heavy bag in the garage and want to get some feedback on it. My initial thought was, oh, this would be a perfect solution for them. That hasn't been the case, actually. It's been the case that these amateur fighters who are really looking to level up their game and get to the next level have been the ones engaging with it the most. So I was pretty surprised about that. And that's where we've had the most success. So I've been really looking for, amateur fighters or people following, the UFC or Muay Thai, events or MMA events, and really just reaching out to them, one, asking feedback on the platform, and then just two, seeing what they like about it and if they'd engage with it.
Now, how did you find me?
I found you, so I found you. I do a Spotify search, and then I found you on Instagram as well. So
Wow.
scoping out both of those, and then listening to a few episodes, and then just kind of, as you know, I just cold outreach,
Oh, that's cool.
that's what I do. I just a lot of cold outreach in this.
Yeah, usually I put out Spotify stuff like maybe a week later I put a whole bunch of like 3 or 4 episodes at a time. But
Yeah,
yeah, that's cool, man.
I,
Like, because
I
I knew
just
you reached out to me. I've had a few people do that, especially lately. I've had some people say, "Hey, can I come on?" Because I'll bring anybody on if they want to, really. But
I I just listened to the PFL with Francis Ngannou. It was just before the signing, and I've listened to, I believe it was David who had the company who, or Kyle maybe, who had the company who was
mhm.
working on, and then a boxing one a few weeks ago as well. But I was curious, Todd. kind of what your thoughts were on the slap league. I didn't know, like, what are your thoughts on it? Because I'm a huge advocate of every martial art form. I think they all have something to offer. The slap one, I'm just really having a tough time getting a grasp on it.
There's episodes on Slap there. You just haven't listened to them.
I
But
haven't I haven't
to
caught them
answer
yet.
your question, um, yeah, I'm not for it. In fact, Michael Hansen, he's a announcer. He announces for Anthony Pettis' show and a Muay Thai show out in New York. I'm trying to remember the name of it. He does a few different shows, but he's like the main announcer that comes on my channel. But he's a great guest too. But he had a great term for this, which he called it knockout porn. Like, and we're just not into it. Like I started watching UFC too. Like I hung out with a group of guys in high school. One of the guys was kind of like a troubled guy. And he was like, "Oh, I was over at Blockbuster Video. I rented it. I took it back. You guys should go get it. It's like real street fights. But the guy
Yeah.
who won, he just wanted to drop on the ground, man. It sucked, but
Yeah.
that's kind of how he was. But, I grew up watching Kung Fu films like the Shaw Brothers films in Hong Kong. So when I watched it, yeah, I thought it was super cool. Like Black Belt Magazine, you had a lot of these guys in Black Belt Magazine, but who's the baddest? Whose style's the most dangerous. So it was kind of like that then. It's not like that now, but yeah, to answer your question, power slap. um, yeah, I mean it's just guys standing there, they can't defend themselves. And eventually, how many times can you see someone get slapped and fall over?
Mhm.
There's not a lot of nuance to the matches.
Yeah. Why, like, do you think there's ever a time where people will gravitate towards it in the long run? I mean, I was trying to think of where the really enthusiasm came for it, because it seems completely opposite of what the UFC has always preached about the skill and technique and the best fighters. And so I was really taken back by it. But I was just curious, like, do you see ever long term? Because the UFC was kind of picked apart a little bit at the beginning, more for its, what
Mhm.
they said, grotesque nature of it. But I'm just curious, kind of, if you see there's any possibility of it being a long term success.
They had it on this, what was it, TBS? And they were paying TBS to put it on there.
Okay.
So TBS wouldn't even let them pay them to do a second season.
Oh,
TBS
really?
wasn't paying them a dime to put that on. Dana White was paying them. So
I
that's how
didn't know
bad
that.
it did on TBS. TBS like, no, we can get more people to watch a rerun of Airwolf or what. Have you ever seen
Yeah.
Airwolf
No,
or Knight
I haven't.
Rider or whatever?
Yeah.
But yeah, they wouldn't even let them pay them to put it on TBS the second season. That's how bad it was from a viewership standpoint. Now I don't know anything about Rumble. I went on there and kind of checked it out, but yeah, I don't Rumble didn't seem like it was all that active.
Mhm.
There's
That's a
people
tough
on
one.
it obviously, but I didn't get the concept of it. It's like they pay people based on, I don't even think it's not really watch time. I think how many views your video gets or something, but they're trying to replace YouTube, but I just for now it's not ready. And I don't know.
Mhm.
The other thing is this. Dana White's talking about views on TikTok or Instagram or whatever. Dude, I put a video. I remember I put a video on Facebook. This kid was it was a wrestling match and he got pinned, but his arm got kind of ripped behind him. Young kid, and he squealed real loudly.
Mhm.
And and we thought he was faking. So I put it out there. That like 5 million people watched it. So it doesn't take much to get a lot of views. People do all kinds of dumb stuff and you could do any stupid thing and get a lot of views right now. You could, in fact, if the dumber, the more popular it is. So you can make a fool out of yourself as soon as we get off of this show and probably get millions of views if you're willing to do that to yourself. Those are the people
Yeah.
who get a lot of views. It's people who just act like morons most of the time. So to me, views on social media really don't mean much,
Mhm. Yeah. I
in my
watched that
opinion.
interview. no, it seemed like that was the major justification for it too. And that, I guess I see that in terms of the viewership. And I'm sure the UFC gets their most views when there is a knockout or a submission. So I can definitely see that. Yeah, it's really tough to see it being long term. I like martial arts. I love the skill and the passion behind it. And I mean, you like karate combat. Even there, it's like that's been fantastic to watch. Like I just love every aspect of it. This one just doesn't seem like there's much skill involved, and it just seems like you said they're just trying to get some viewership. But yeah, it's definitely. I was just curious about your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much strategy. You're
Mhm.
going to go in there
Yeah,
and slap the person. The person's going to have their hands behind their back. What kind of strategy can you do? Next time I'm going to do this. Well, there's
yeah.
not much else you can do next time. You're going to have to put your hands behind your back and get hit in the face.
Mhm.
I'm going to try to win the coin toss this time. That's about the only thing you could do.
Yeah,
What else can you
exactly. That's a
do?
good analogy. I
So
know. Yeah,
there's
what do
not
you
a lot
eat?
of
Yeah.
nuance.
Mhm.
In
Yeah.
fighting, you can try to, this time I'm going to do this time I'm going to do that. I'll make a change in between rounds. You can't change your strategy in between rounds in this. You
No.
slap and you get slapped. That's it. So that's
Yeah.
where I think they're going to struggle because the
Mhm.
other combat sports all have nuance, all of them: jiu-jitsu,
Mhm.
wrestling, MMA, boxing. That's why they put people in between rounds to see what they're talking about. What are you going to talk about in between rounds? Power slap,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Bite down on your mouthpiece more or something. I don't even know if they
Yeah,
wear
I mean,
mouthpieces, but yeah.
there is no strategy.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah.
think that's going to be the challenge for them.
Mhm. It'll be interesting. I'm excited to see kind of where it goes in 2 to 3 years.
You could have a power slap coach on there.
I was
They,
thinking
they
the
could
same
they could
thing. I was thinking, yeah,
they could critique their slap technique.
exactly. Get your hips into it more. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, man. So let's talk about, kind of, since we're kind of winding down the interview here, I want to talk to you about maybe your next, well, maybe you could tell me, like, what's your next block of time, what you're thinking as far as maybe the next month, 2 months, whatever it might be.
In terms of what we're trying to accomplish.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think we're just trying to get the experience for the coaches and the students as best as it possibly can. I don't want to scale it to more coaches if the experience for both the students and the coaches isn't where it needs to be. So the main thing is really just try to get more students, get feedback from them, really get great feedback from the four coaches I'm working. I work very closely with them. I text them, twice a week, 3 times a week. And so we're working very closely to get feedback on their workflow, what can be improved, what they need help with, what they really like about it. And then from the students, kind of really getting feedback. So the next month or 2 months, I am just hyper focused on the experience for both sides of it. And then once we're happy with the experience, once the demand's there, then we can kind of start looking for other coaches.
What's some of the feedback you got from the coaches as far as use of the platform or whatever?
Yeah, the platform's been great. The we've run into a few like small issues in terms of like storage and the communication uh, after the recordings and things like that, but just small issues. So actually really happy with what the platform allows you to do on the coach's side. The only feedback I've gotten for a bigger picture from the coaches is kind of where we're going with it and kind of how we can build out that, the entire martial arts platform that, I was kind of envisioning. So that's kind of really, we've just been kind of working through how we could possibly do that in the long run.
So the tech savvy aspect of it, they don't need to be all that tech savvy when it comes to responding and all that.
That's the nice part. Yeah, it's all set up for them, and so they can go on. They can upload the video that the student submitted. They can record it just like a Zoom call. They can record it, go through their analysis. Then they send it back with the drills and the fighters to watch as well. So it's all designed to be as seamless as possible for the coaches. There's still definitely room for improvement in that sense, but that's definitely the overall goal is make it as seamless as possible for the students and for the coaches.
Now, for people that want to utilize this, tell them where to find it and some of that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. It's tryimpact.io. And then if you want to find us on Instagram, that's the platform we're most active on. It's try_impact. Um, from Todd's advice, we're going to TikTok next week. I'm going to be active on that. And then we're working on YouTube as well. But Instagram, try_impact. And then the website is tryimpact.io.
Now, is there anything else that you have online besides this related to this project or no?
In terms of resources or in terms of
That's affiliated with the project or anything?
no, no, right now just the tryimpact.io is the main one.
And this is kind of all that you're doing at the moment is this project?
Yeah, just hyper focused on it. Yep.
Okay. Let me ask you this. You said you're in San Francisco. Are you part of the Silicon Valley type thing or no?
So I actually in LA right now. I just moved
Oh,
about
okay.
a year ago. But San Francisco, I was yeah, I moved. I got my master's in applied economics, and so I was really focused on data analysis specifically, and I wanted to work in the technology space and really learn about it. So I was San Francisco tech, Silicon Valley, um, deep dive for about 3 4 years.
Right, but you hear this term. I've never talked to someone who was inside of this. So maybe tell me a little bit about Silicon Valley.
Yeah, it's it's a smaller ecosystem than I thought. It's a lot of really smart, really enthusiastic individuals. Reminds me a lot of the martial arts community, where it's a tight-knit community, and a lot of people who are really driven, just like the martial arts community. And so it's been great. It's been fantastic. I've really enjoyed being a part of it. There's different sides to it. There's the venture capital side to it. There's the engineering side to it. There's the sales side to it. So I've really just been focused more on the sales and data analyst side of it. But I've really enjoyed being a part of it. I think there's some amazing people in it. The biggest takeaway I had was that it's a much smaller ecosystem than a lot of people might think.
But what I want to know is like, so if you're working in tech and you're in San Francisco, are you part of this Silicon Valley, or is this like a certain area where people generally
Yeah,
migrate to?
I don't know. I wouldn't say there's a specific like singular place. Definitely down in Palo Alto is where a lot of the headline technology gets done and really gets promoted and kind of built out. So when you're up in San Francisco, it's a little bit more, smaller companies, smaller startups. And then when you get down to Palo Alto, that's when you run into, kind of the Facebooks and um, you know, Teslas and stuff like that.
Now, what's it like? Like if you had to, intermingling with those kind of these bigger conglomerates.
Yeah, I haven't done a ton of interactions with like the major ones. I've actually been in startups my entire career because I just love the small startup environment and love the enthusiasm. It's really, I can tell you, it's at the bigger at the bigger organizations, it's still really fast paced. It's really people are just going. It's kind of a melting pot. People are from all over, which is really cool. And again, people are really driven and trying to accomplish a goal. So it's super fun to be around.
So you're saying like places like Facebook, Instagram, these are high stress.
Oh, yeah. That's from I again, I haven't worked at any of them.
Yeah.
I know a few people who have worked at larger ones, and it is definitely all high stress, especially in the startup world where I'm really familiar with. It's, hey, we've raised capital that we have a runway of about a year and a half. There's no messing around. Like you got to hit your
Oh,
number, you got to do your job, because if you don't, we all lose our job and we don't get funding next round. So it's really fast paced in the startup environment, which is it's stressful, but it's super fun too because they let you try a bunch of different things. They let you really go after and see, there's at my current company, we have like a bias for action is what they call it. And so it's just like, hey, don't waste time asking us for approval on an idea. Go test it out and then come back to us with the feedback. So that, it's a lot of that.
yeah. Actually, I'm going to put out an episode tonight because I was just uploading it I don't know if you watched my latest YouTube with Miguel, where we were talking about Miguel was part of the original Abu Dhabi
Oh,
jiu-jitsu
that's cool.
tournament. He originally went as a reporter, and eventually he got into a lot of the taping side and stuff. But Sheikh Tanoon, who was behind that, he was a student just like any of us. Him and his
Mhm.
brother were sweeping mats at the gym. People didn't know that these guys were royalty in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
And they were in college. They were going to college out there in California somewhere. And when they came back, because they had been doing jujitsu for years and years, they decided, I want to do this tournament. And they had the passion, you know what I'm saying? So me and Miguel
Mhm.
were talking about, PFL and some of these others. Unless they find someone else the passion, even if they raise 280 million, these people aren't going to be in it for the long haul unless there's a return quickly, like you're talking about, you know?
Gotcha. Okay. I think I did watch that episode where
Okay.
yeah, I think that was the main thing. They raised what 280 million to try to go buy Bellator.
Hmm.
Was it, or that's what people are saying, right?
That's what I said.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what you said.
I
Exactly.
put
That's what
that
you
out.
broke.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. It's going to be really interesting. I love PFL for giving this a try. Like, I think it's so fun to watch. Uh, I would be a liar if I sat here and told you I knew how it was going to turn out. There's a couple indicators where, you can kind of see where it might go, but I'm just super excited that PFL is trying stuff like this, that Bellator is trying stuff. So it's just exciting to watch.
I was a huge fan of the early Bellator. I don't know if you watched Bjorn Rebney's Bellator. Bjorn Rebney was the guy who built Bellator from the
Okay.
ground up, but he kind of rubbed people the wrong way. Not
Okay.
not like Dana White does to people outside of the UFC within Bellator. He was kind of like he could be abrasive, but he had built a tournament format, kind of like what PFL does. He had a season tournament. It was all like that. They called toughest tournament in sports. You had to win 3 fights in 3 months or 4 fights in 3 months. And it was on every
Jeez.
Thursday. So you knew what time, what night it was going to be on, what time. It was always on Thursday nights. And I
Mhm.
loved it. But then, they brought Scott Coker in and he totally changed it. And again, we're getting back to the passion. Bellator was Bjorn Rebney's baby. He built it up. He brought it from different networks. He had it on like ES or MTV, like a Spanish channel. Then he got it on MTV. Then he got it on Spike. This was his project, and
Yeah.
Viacom thought it'd be a good idea to let him go. Well, he's the one who cares about it, and that's
Yeah.
kind of what we were getting at. If you have passion, like you're talking about with your coaches, if you have the right
Mhm.
group of people, you can do anything. But if you're the wrong group or people backing you financially that don't have the passion, they just want a return and they want it soon, preferably.
Yeah, absolutely right. And
Yeah.
a lot of the VCs, the metrics they're looking for success don't necessarily mean long-term success, like you were just referring to. And so I completely agree. The passion with almost minimal resources can be favored over, a lot of resources with less passion for sure. So hopefully there's a lot of people with passion, on the PFL side. And I know the UFC has a ton of passion. That's Dana White. I give him a lot of credit for how much passion he has for it. So yeah, it'll be really exciting to watch. I'm enjoying the watching the fights. More fighters, more fights. It's always fun for the fans. So that's
And
nice.
all the stuff they're doing in Abu Dhabi, that's because of Sheikh Tanoon. So,
Yeah.
he made the
Okay.
Abu Dhabi tournament. Eventually, he bought 10% of the UFC because they needed him to do it at the time. So, this guy who was sweeping mats, all this stuff, Fight Island, that's him.
It's crazy. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Sheikh Tanoon. So, he was just like a student. He loved jujitsu. He was dead set on doing this tournament. He didn't care if it was terrible or not. At first it was just him and his friends in the audience. No one was there to watch it. When
That's
it was in
crazy.
Abu Dhabi, it was strictly for them. It was a private thing. He brought the best guys in the world, and him and his buddies just sat there and watched it.
Didn't they? There was Tyson Fury. One of his fights, he said, was almost on a yacht for someone in Abu
Yeah,
Dhabi
yeah. A lot of
to watch. Yeah.
Yeah, I lived in Saudi Arabia when I was younger, 6 to 12. My dad was working for Ramco And I could never imagine any of that stuff happening because when I was there, like you'd be watching a movie and the thing would just skip. Like they would
Okay.
erase parts of it that offended them and then put it out in the movie theaters. They would
Yeah.
scribble out stuff in like Time magazine. They'd just scribble out a lady's legs, like all with the big, thick black magic marker, and then sell it right there on the newsstand. You'd be like, what the heck is this?
Yeah.
So
And
I
then now
couldn't
they're
imagine.
hosting fights.
Yeah, I'm like, what is this? I could imagine the other places, but not Saudi Arabia ever.
Yeah.
But now they're getting involved. It's a wild time.
It's a wild time. Yep.
Well, Jacob, I appreciate you taking the time of taking up almost an hour of your time. I know you're probably busy, but I appreciate you taking time to talk about this project. Everybody check out tryimpact.io. And yeah, I look forward to hearing more about it in the future after you've
Awesome.
done more with it.
Thank you so much for having me, Todd. Thank you for your time. I can't thank you enough for it. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's great talking to you. It's great meeting you. And everyone who thanks for supporting this episode. Until next time, take care.